Hello YouTube. Today I'm going to start working on the kitchen. And first thing, I still got, build the supports and all that, but the first thing I want to do is I want to start on the countertop, because that's a little bit longer process. Now, we talked about all kinds of different things, the idea of store-bought Formica chipboard. Yeah, really didn't do it for us. So we thought, oh, how about get a nice slab and do a live edge, which is nice. We went to a nice sawmill. The guy had some really nice stuff. Nothing wide enough. Figure a minimum counter space 24 inches. She'd like 27. We don't have a place that's warm enough for me to split a wood and put the live edges in the middle and do like the epoxy river. Someday I'm gonna do one of those, because those look like really nice and look like a lot of fun. Maybe my next bus, if I ever do one. But I don't have a place to do that. So slabs was out, and so we came up with an alternative plan. She saw one that she really liked. The guy, they'd made it look like they made it out of like 2x6s. Can't find really decent 2x6s unless I go find some old lumber. But they make 1x6s. And I've spent a lot of time sorting through, trying to find ones. These two don't quite match up, and I've got to play around. I'm trying to get this so that the glue joints are as small as possible and get these stickers off of here. But we're going to glue, I'm going to glue all this up, and then along the edge I'm going to put a piece of 1x2, so it'll give the appearance, looking at it, that it's 3 inches thick. I've got lots of pieces of plywood kicking around, so I'm going to glue plywood to the back of this, which will help stabilize it all. I'm going to urethane it first and then put the plywood on, because the urethane will help seal this. When you're doing this kind of stuff, you really want to seal the wood. And I've also got to look at the way the grain is. This one, I don't know if you can see it, but the grain goes this way. This one goes this way. That one goes this way. This one goes the same as that. So this is no good. It's got to be flipped over that way. And then this one's fine. And then this one's got to be flipped. Something like that. You want the grain of the wood, one go alternating this way and that way. If you put them all the same way, eventually it could end up cupping and you end up with a trough, not a counter. But by doing it this way and sealing it tight with urethane, that will stabilize it. So once I get this straightened out, I'll show you the next step. Okay, so I got it laid out pretty much as good as it's going to get. I don't have to do the one trick where you take and attach the boards together and run it through a table saw, and that way it matches up. These are all pretty close, but what I'm going to do is label the boards: number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And that way, and then I'm just going to put a hash mark across them on the sides that get glue, because this only gets glue on one, and it helps me match them all up. So now I'm going to I'll get the glue on them, get them down, and I'm going to move the clamps. I've got 4 clamps, and we'll get to doing that in a sec. All right, I just did glued up one side. I want to get the ends pretty close, but when we go to trim this, we're not having an 8-foot long counter, so somewhere along the lines, the little ends on these 5-foot jobs disappeared. That's not quite good enough. Now what you don't want to do, there we go, you want to crank this in enough to bring all the boards together, and a little bit of glue poking up through, but not so much pressure that it makes the boards twist. I got one here that's sitting a little low. There we go. And you're just bringing it in just so it's tight. And I got a little bit of glue seeping out, and I'm leaving it right alone. All right. Now you can see the glue sticking out. I'm leaving it right alone. If I try to take it off now, it's going to smear. Glue has a problem. It does not take stain or paint very well. But trick I just learned from another YouTuber, and he's like, leave it alone and then I will take it off. I'll take it off with a little bit of a chisel. But I just pulled them together just tight enough to so the glue seeps out, and now we're just going to leave it alone and cover it up and come back tomorrow, and hopefully everything will be nice and dry. So I'll see you then when we uncover this in the morning. Well, I had this all glued up, and it's been a few days to let it sit and get really hard. And this is the back side. I've tried really hard to get the boards even on the front side, but they're a little off, and you can see this being the downside. When I clamped it, there was a lot of glue just that dripped down through. So the easiest way is I'm just going to take a chisel and run a chisel along and just scrape the glue off. So some spots obviously are harder than others, so I'll just take and do that, and I'll give this side a minimal sanding. And let me just flip this over, show you what the other side looks like. All right, so this is the top side, and as you can see, it's for the most part it's pretty even. It's off a little bit, but the same thing applies. Is I'm just going to take and scrape the glue off this side. I am going to sand down a lot. I don't want to sand the glue. I want to get as much of that off as possible before I start to sand. And there's spots like here where it's a little high. You know, I'll sand this down and I'll get this nice and smooth, because this is going to be the countertop. Once we stain it, these boards are going to look even nicer. Right now it's just 1x stock pine and all glued up into a big wide countertop. So what I got to do is, the glue doesn't take the stain, which is why I want to get as much of that off of the edges as possible before I sand it down. I'm going to use the belt sander, and then I'll come back with the palm sander and really smooth it out. But I am going to back this with plywood, and I am going to put an edge on it, but I'm going to wait till I get it sanded, and before I get to putting the edge on and backing it with the plywood. I want to get it as smooth as I can. So time to do that. Yeah, there we go, all sanded down. It looks sort of plain now, but we're going to get a coat of stain on this when she decides what color. Anybody taking any bets? I'm going to say probably going to be cherry. The other side I just smoothed out. I didn't really sand it down as much. The idea is just to make it a relatively flat, so I can attach plywood to it. But the first step, before I even stain this side, I've got to rip it down just a little bit, because there's like this split here and just a little one on that side. So I'm just going to take a little bit off this side and a little bit more off this side to get the final size. This is right now is, I think, 26.5 inches. So it'll probably be 26.25. It'd be a little bit deeper than your normal one. But once I rip it down to size, and this is only going to be 6.5 feet counter, so that is actually, it's about here. I'm going to have a good 1.5 foot extra. I'll find something to do with it. But once I get it down to size, then it's going to be attaching the edge piece and then sealing the back side. I'm going to put one coat of urethane on the back side to seal it. I want to stabilize this. The outside, the top part where you can see it, that's where we'll stain, and we'll put a few coats of urethane on. But you got to seal the back side before I even attach the plywood. Oh, you got a smudge there. There, it's better. You don't want the wood absorbing moisture on one side and not the other, because then you end up with it cupping or warping all out of shape, and we don't want that. So I'm going to seal the back side first, and that'll be the next step. On the countertop, we got to start working on the supports for the countertop in the kitchen. So let's go in there. I'll show you what I'm looking at. Okay, so this is the kitchen area. I mean, that's obviously the back side of the tub. I'm doing the doing the plumbing right now. I'm waiting on a part so I can get the tub fill in. Then I am going to enclose this. She wants a pretty high countertop. She wants it 39 inches, which is this high, which is about 3 inches higher than normal. And so we're going to put the stove here. I'm going to mount the tankless hot water heater on the wall here. And then the stove. So the tankless hot water heater will be behind the garbage. We'll make a little drawer thing here for the garbage. And obviously this is going to be a wall. I'm going to leave below the countertop, I'm going to leave this open so that the plumbing can be got to, and I can have the valves to turn things off if I want. So stove there, a little bit of counter space. The sink she got right here will actually, I think, fit between the water tank and the edge of the counter. If that fits there, and I really gotta double check that, then I can put I've got room. We're coming all the way down to here, 6.5 feet. So if I can move the sink this way and get a little counter space between the stove and the sink, great. If the sink crowds the stove, so be it. And there'll be counter on this side. We need some counter space to work. At the edge on here, I'm probably going to have a pull-out like cutting board just to make a little more counter space to use when needed. And that's probably going to be what's the part, at least, of what's left over from the countertop. So anyway, that's the plan. And somewhere in here, well, all the plumbing is going back in behind here. And somewhere in here, probably right there, is going to be the diesel cab heater. I'm just sort of running out of places to put it. And she's got a 100-gallon water tank, which is going to stretch all the way along here. We're putting it this way. I got to frame that in. So I've got to build the counter supports and everything around that. So that just makes life interesting. So that's the plan. And come back in a second and we'll get working on it. All right. So here in Georgia, yeah, I know the way I find out when it's quitting time is these guys show up. Literally hundreds and hundreds of vultures. There's some there, there's more over there, and this is actually a small amount of them. I don't know whether this area has a nice thermal for them to play on at this time of day, or they're smelling me and thinking I'm almost dead. So, good time.